this?
Just push the arrow. Am I allowed to tilt it toward me? It's not like,
oh, the video is on, but if you're okay with that.
Yeah, this video?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. How are you? Good. Yeah, I'm Jeannie Hunter with Society of St. Andrew. And the description of what I was to say was first asked me to, there we go, tell you a little bit about myself and my background. And so the first thing that I remember learning about that was environmental was in Girl Scouts, and that's what that picture is. I can remember being in 4th grade and learning about the hole in the ozone layer and that we weren't supposed to use aerosol cans anymore, and it was a big deal. And then it went away, basically. The hole was like going away. And that made a big impression on me that like the things that we do actually matter. And the things that just a regular person does can have an impact. And so I think that that's influenced me ever since then. Also, I was just taking the rubber band off of the pamphlets, and I remember I went home for Christmas a couple years ago, and my dad, I was about to throw a rubber band in the trash, and my dad was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Sorry, but like we save things. We don't throw things away in that family." And that's, you know, blue collar and post-depression kind of thing. But it just was like, oh, right, this is where I come from. As you said, I went to Eckerd College and I went to Emory School of Theology. Eckerd's got a really strong environmental focus. And Emory, their School of Theology has a really strong social justice focus. And now I'm at Tennessee State. I'm learning about public policy because everything that I've learned so far is telling me that public policy ends up being the number one, the ultimate thing that makes an impact. So I want to say, I know that the church doesn't always have the best reputation in environmental circles, and they deserve that. And I still struggle with all of that as well. But I would say that the Bible, just like the Constitution, is very interpretable, and the way someone interprets either scripture or the Constitution or whatever else says a lot more about them and the institution than it says about the actual document. So that being said, this is a passage from Deuteronomy. When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be left for the alien, the orphan, and the widow, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all your undertakings. And then they say the same thing about the olive trees and the grapes of the vineyard, with the conclusion that remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and therefore I'm commanding you to do this. And this is the book of the law. And so really at the very beginning of the outset of agriculture, there were concerns about the people who didn't have anything. And so even just setting up how we do agriculture in the very beginnings of this particular civilization, they built in justice and they built in a way to feed people. And they did it because you were a slave in the land of Egypt. It's like this humility. We're all humans. We're all part of humanity. We're all the same. Just because you own land or whatever doesn't mean you're any better than the orphan or the widow. So that's a big influence on me. The book of Ruth, I don't know if any of y'all have ever read it. It's kind of a Cinderella story, but she does gleaning. She leaves a desperate situation, has nothing to eat, no one to care for her. She is taking care of her mother-in-law, and she goes and gleans. And gleaning is when you harvest whatever is left behind on the field. She gets enough to feed herself and her mother-in-law. And then she like marries the landowner and blah, blah, blah. And then one example, this is probably 2,000 years after the Deuteronomy passage. We have that Jesus himself and the disciples were doing this gleaning. They would just walk along and grab the food and eat because they were not wealthy, little band of whatever at that time. This is gleaning from the 19th century. And then this is gleaning today. We take volunteers out to farms, and when they're done with whatever the crop is at the time, they allow us to come out and gather whatever is left. So these 2 rows of kale were getting eaten by insects, and even though the kale is still perfectly fine and you wash away the bugs, obviously, it doesn't look pretty, and so people don't want to buy it. And so they had us come out, harvest a bunch more of it before the bugs could have any more of it. And we took it and donated it to Nashville Rescue Mission. So it looks an awful lot like it always did. So we get all these volunteers from all kinds of different places. And we donate the food to existing feeding agencies. So we don't actually prepare the food. We don't actually give the food to individual people. We give the food to different agencies. And we do that because 16% of Tennesseans are food insecure, and 20% of Tennessee's children experience food insecurity. And food insecurity means you don't know where your next meal is coming from. And that means that sometime in a year, 16 to 20% of Tennesseans don't know what they're going to eat next or where they're going to get food. So that's one of the, we gleaned peppers, and that's one of the prepared meals that one of the agencies sent us a picture so we could just see how it went. And that was pretty fun to see it like that. Contemporary gleaning looks a little different and a lot the same, but this is one of our farmers in South Central Tennessee. And because of the way people are so picky about fruits and vegetables and stuff, he's a sweet potato grower, and only about half of his crop is good enough grocery stores. It's either shaped funny, or the color's a little off, or it has a spot on it. And that means it's not okay for the grocery stores. And sweet potatoes, of course, are roots. They're grown underground. So it's not like you can be like, oh, it's perfect football shape, let me get it right now, the way you can with things that grow above ground. And so he has this giant machine contraption thing that sorts out the potatoes into the good ones and the bad ones. And the quote bad ones are so perfectly good, perfectly tasty and nutritious. And he'll share boxes of them with us, sometimes a full truckload of like 40,000 pounds of sweet potatoes that are not good enough for the grocery store. And obviously they're plenty good. And so we are able to donate them at different feeding agencies. We have what's called a crop drop, where we pull one of these big trucks into a parking lot, usually a church parking lot, and volunteers bag the potatoes into 10-pound bags. And then we can send them to different agencies that either can take, 2,000 pounds or can take 3 bags. It just depends on the agency. This is what it can look like. Another farmer does green beans with us, and it's the same thing. Green beans have to be between 3 and 5 inches. They can't be shorter, they can't be longer, they can't be too curly, and they can't have spots. And that seems crazy to me, but that's how it is. And so if there are ones that are too long or too curly or too short or whatever, they are saving them for us, and we are able to take them and give them to different feeding agencies where they go to feed hungry people. I'm sure most of you have heard a lot about food waste. You know that food waste, when it gets in the landfill, creates methane, which is a huge greenhouse gas. And this is by ReFed, which is an organization that studies food waste. And it's really an estimate about how much food actually goes to waste at farms. But we're one of very few organizations that addresses that one little kind of purplish spot on the gamut. All of these reasons are reasons that people donate food to us. There was one year that it was like 70 through December. And so nobody was in the mood for sweet potato pie. And so there weren't any sweet potatoes being sold. And so they just had a bunch of extra sweet potatoes. And so we got a bunch of extra sweet potatoes. It's all kinds of weird factors that contribute to what kind of extra food there is. And that's my daughter, Esther, and she used to be cute. She's still cute, but she's 12. She's a punk. And this is the EPA's food recovery hierarchy. Their ideal, of course, is to reduce food waste, reduce the amount of food that goes to waste. And then their second best thing is to feed hungry people. That's what the food is intended to do. And so that's the second best option. And then we want to feed animals. And then there's lots of industrial uses and composting. And then at the very least thing we ever want to do is send it to the landfiller to be incinerated. So Society of St. Andrew provides education opportunities and service projects, all kinds of different activities. We recently, well, right before the pandemic, we started doing share tables in schools. And that's when kids have something on their tray that they don't want to eat, but they haven't like opened. They can just put it on the share table and maybe another kid will eat it and maybe they won't. But if nobody eats all of it, then a volunteer from SOSA will go and pick up that excess and donate it usually to the rescue mission. And so this is teaching kids about, you know, food waste. It's teaching them all kinds of stuff. In this particular picture, they're also composting. That's not usually the case right now. During the pandemic, we had to stop because everybody was afraid that touching things was gonna give you COVID. And then other people, outside people weren't allowed in the schools for a while because of COVID. So we're just starting that up again, but that's kind of a weekly volunteer opportunity. So I like to say that we are helping all these people all at once. And, you know, we're using one problem, which is excess food, to solve another problem, which is that there are hungry people. So obviously we're helping hungry people because we're giving them good, nutritious food, and it's not like day-old pastries and stuff. We're helping hunger relief agencies because we're giving them this food for free. We don't charge for it at all. And so that either frees up their budget to buy more food or to provide other services, depending on the agency. We're helping farmers because they don't have to pay a tipping fee. The guy with the sweet potatoes would have had to dump that in a landfill, and there's a tipping fee for that. And also we give them a tax deduction, the tax receipt, and they can file for a reduction. And food donation tax deductions are actually pretty generous, so that's good. If you're a volunteer with us and you get to come out and be on a farm and pick vegetables for a couple hours, it's really nice. It feels good. It's nice to get your hands dirty. There's sunshine, and it feels like you're doing something tangible. Hunger is like this really abstract subject, and it feels like, how am I supposed to do anything about it? But there's this tangible thing that you're really doing. Oh, and it's good for the planet. So in my work with Society of St. Andrew, I've been able to connect with a bunch of other food-related environmental agencies. Agriculture has a huge potential to do damage to the environment, and it also has huge potential to be helpful. And the Get Food Smart Tennessee is sponsored by TWIG, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, and they are working hard to get manufacturers and restaurants and everybody else to reduce food waste. The NRDC funded the Nashville Food Waste Initiative like 7 years ago now, and now Urban Green Lab facilitates that. Clean Memphis is doing the Memphis Food Waste Project, and we participate in that. And then the Tennessee Local Food Summit is another agency that's trying to help ag become a positive environmental impact instead of negative. And along those lines, Kiss the Ground is a really cool documentary, but they also have soil advocacy training, and I took that, and it's really cool. Basically, it gave me hope again. There's a lot of potential in the soil for to absorb a lot of the carbon that's in the atmosphere. And it's a whole big thing, but mostly the point is that there is still hope. The other thing I want to say is policy is everything. These are some things that policy changes could help for in the food donation and food rescue area. Tax deductions already exist, but tax credits might be nice. There's already a Good Samaritan Act that says if you donate food, if something happens, you can't get sued. Unless there's gross negligence, which is like you sprinkle it with arsenic or something. There could be penalties for people tipping food into the landfill, and it would be great if there were compost services. So these are all things that you could talk to your state or local or federal representatives. That feels hard right now, but city people you can talk to. And then these are ways that you can volunteer with Society of St. Andrew or help us out. Obviously, volunteering is an option. Get in touch with me if you want to do something. Just like following our social media and liking and sharing our stuff is surprisingly helpful because, I don't know, algorithms. And then, of course, donations. We're a nonprofit, and so we run on donations. So yeah, I guess my call to action is volunteer with us and call your representatives for whatever purpose it might be. They're not scary, except en masse, but when you call them, it's not bad and it's easy.